Hello and welcome everyone to the Orthodox Christian Attorney Network's webinar today on parish emergency and safety preparation. We are really pleased to have so many people with us on this meeting today, including many clergy, as this is a very important topic. My name is Deacon Ken Liu, and I'm the Executive Director of OCAN, and we're a ministry dedicated to fostering the fellowship and spiritual growth of Orthodox attorneys and to serve the Orthodox Church and to impact our communities with the love of Christ. And we would be really grateful if you could help spread the news about OCAN to any attorneys that you know of. And those of you who are attorneys but are not members of OCAN yet, we invite you to check out our website and become a member. We offer discounts to CLE webinars, members-only resources like our National Attorney Directory, and discounts to events like the National Retreat that we just had near Chicago in April. We are super excited for all of you today, both attorneys and non-attorneys. It has been very encouraging to see the significant growth in Orthodox parishes in the past couple of years. And as our parishes grow in size and complexity, the responsibility to safeguard our parishioners and visitors becomes increasingly critical. Parish leadership have a duty, a legal duty, to exercise reasonable care in identifying, reducing, and managing safety risks. Most of our webinars are legal in nature, while today's is a practical one that we wanted to open up to both lawyers and non-lawyers because of the importance of helping our parishes to protect parishioners from physical injury, which is a major source of church liability. And so I'm extremely pleased to have with us today an expert on emergency and disaster management. Ioana Manaun is a professional in emergency and disaster management. She has a master's degree in the field and has over 12 years of experience setting up emergency and preparedness plans. And she played a key role as a Medical Reserve Corps coordinator during the COVID pandemic, managing large-scale volunteer operations and supporting the deployment of over 3,000 volunteers and staff. Ioana is also a fellow parishioner of mine at St. Mary's Romanian OCA Church in Falls Church, Virginia, where she recently helped us set up a very rigorous parish emergency and safety plan. And so you get to hear from her expertise today. If you have any questions during the talk, feel free to type them into the chat box. We'll try to get to them as much as we can, but since she does have a lot to cover, we might not get to everyone, but we'll have some time at the end as well. Without further ado, thank you, Ioana, for being with us.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Deacon Ken. It's a pleasure to be here. I am very excited to talk about this topic because it's a passion of mine, and I think it's everyone's responsibility to be prepared as an individual, as an organization, and also as a community, as a neighborhood and a bigger community. So as Deacon Ken said, we're going to address today building a culture of preparedness in our faith communities. The objectives that we're going to cover today are understanding emergency management at a larger scale, understand the critical role of emergency preparedness in faith-based organizations, preparedness elements to respond effectively to emergencies, safety and security considerations, response procedures, understand roles and responsibilities in a response framework, training and drills, your church as a community resource, and we're going to address that a little bit later. Explore how legal frameworks, planning, and volunteer management work together to ensure resilience and protection of people and property. Understand emergency management. What is emergency management? Is the ability to prevent, prepare for, respond to, recover from, and mitigate for emergencies and disasters. The emergency management is a cycle, and it has 4 phases: is preparedness, response, recovery, and mitigation. This is the cycle, and you could see preparedness is in green, and this is what we're doing today. We're raising awareness about the importance of being prepared. Response means the action and the steps that you're taking during a response phase. Recovery, what do you do to recover from a disaster? And mitigation is hazard and vulnerability assessments, improve infrastructure, and steps that you could take to mitigate the impact of a disaster. Types of disasters, you have natural disasters, man-made disasters, technological and biological. And this is also at a larger scale. And you could see that we could have natural disasters like winter storms or tree falling out, technological hazards, terrorist attacks, which are man-made disasters, and medical emergencies such as COVID. Now, you're going to hear me talk about disasters and emergencies, and I want to make sure you have a clear understanding that disasters are actually a larger scale event that damages a whole community or a city or a town, and it exhausts the local resources, where an emergency is an unforeseen event that demands immediate action, but it can be resolved with the local resources. So that is the difference between disasters and emergencies. So so we talked about the disasters. Now, types of emergencies, like I said, they are a smaller scale. These are emergencies that could happen in your church. It could be natural disasters, it could be technological, health, and falls and slips. And this is where I would like to give you a few examples, because the St. Mary Orthodox Church, we have implemented the emergency preparedness program, and we have dealt with small emergencies like that. We had medical situations where people, because of fasting all day on a Sunday, they feel like, fainting. We had people who, due to a coffee spill in the fellowship hour, they fell actually in the fellowship hall. And also we had situations where we had a homeless person walking around the property, and you have to ensure that you have the private property sign displayed on your property, because it's a private property. So, even though we talk about emergency preparedness, we automatically think of these big, large events. These are disasters, and sometimes it happens. It happens, not as often, even though the number of people or the property affected are much bigger. But we are preparing for the smaller emergencies, and the small emergencies actually do happen in a church community. Why preparedness matter for the church? Churches often serve as a community gathering place and shelter. Emergencies can happen during services, events, or off hours. Disaster or any emergency disrupts lives. Churches are trusted anchors. People naturally turn to faith communities to help or to get help. Preparedness saves lives and resources. And the church has a legal responsibility. They have a duty to provide a safe environment for everybody, all the parishioners, staff, and visitors. And it also has a moral responsibility because it's an act of love and stewardship. The importance of being prepared. Emergencies are not a matter of if, but a matter of when, because we know these events happen. Preparation equals faster recovery and less trauma. Preparedness strengthens our ministry's resilience. And FEMA data says every $1 spent on mitigation saves $6 in recovery costs. This is a slide that I put together for you with all the active shooting and violent incidents of faith-based organizations from 2021 to 2026. As you can see, a number of people and casualties is not that high, but this is a very frightening event. And I bring it up because if you look at the last, on May 18, 2026, the last row, the Islamic Center of San Diego, California, I want to bring it to your attention that that security guard that they had actually saved about 140 children because he was able to distract the two gunmen and be able to radio in inside the facility to be on a lockdown. So this shows the importance of being prepared. This shows the importance of having this communication plan, having a radio, doing text messages to be able to communicate with those inside, to be, to protect their lives and also to protect your property as well. And this is what, and I cannot, emphasize more on this topic, because this is not only about your organization or you and an individual. As FEMA says, and everybody in emergency management field says, preparedness starts at a local level. Local level, that means you, me, Deacon Ken, and your organization, your neighborhood, your community, because we know those that we are come into a relationship on a daily basis. We know their needs. We know how we can protect them best. And I think for you as a leader, it's important to emphasize this in your church, to tell people as individuals to be prepared to do this mental exercise every time they enter the church, even though it's a familiar place and they may know where the exits are. They may know, how to evacuate. But when an episode like this happens, chaos and fear takes place, and they're not going to know what to do. They're not going to know who's doing what. So it's very important for them to walk into the church, to identify the exits, to sit in the pew and think, like, for 5 seconds or 10 seconds, if something happens, and some incident like this happens at my church, what do I do? Which door do I evacuate? Do I run? Do I hide? Do I go under the pew? Or do I fight? What can I grab to be able to protect myself? So this is something that I cannot emphasize more for you to understand the importance of it, and to take this and pass it over to your congregation, and how to prepare and how to exercise this, to do this mental exercise, because it's very important. And not only with your church, but if you go to a restaurant or if you go to a movie theater, the same principle applies. And I'm going to stop over here for a minute before we go into the preparedness element. And I would like to ask Deacon Ken if there are any questions in the chat.
No, not right now.
Okay. The next topic of the presentation is preparedness elements for faith-based organizations. What should we have in our organization? It is important for us to develop a safety team. At St. Mary, since I implemented the program, I was able to recruit 15 individuals that they are active or retired law enforcement, military, and medical personnel. And these individuals are receiving a free training every month, either from me or other professionals in the field in Northern Virginia, and they take classes. We provided classes such as CPR and basic life support. We provided psychological first aid. We provided personal emergency preparedness. So make sure, if you decide to develop a safety team, this team has all the resources and the tools to be successful on their job. Once you develop a plan, you'll be able to run drills for fire, severe weather, or active assailant scenarios. Then you're going to have to develop an emergency operation plan or a continuity of operation plan, and a communication plan, which can be internal and external. Maintain emergency supplies like first aid kits, AEDs. We just implemented and we purchased actually an AED, and we put it in the church. Make sure you have radios, flashlight, food, and water. Train greeters and ministry leaders in basic emergency roles. And why do I emphasize greeters? Because they are the first individuals that welcome visitors into your church. And sometimes at St. Mary's, for example, we do have greeters who are part of the safety team. But some individuals may not want to be part of the safety team, but still be a greeter. That means that the person who is putting together this preparedness program has the responsibility to train the greeter to be able to look out for suspicious behavior, to look out for or to learn how to de-escalate a certain situation. So now we're going to talk about plans, and I'm going to explain a little bit. I refer on a previous slide about emergency operation plan or emergency action plan. This is a written guide that helps you know exactly what to do in an emergency. It includes emergency procedures, like who is in charge, what actions to take, how to protect lives and property. Communication plan, evacuation and shelter plans, special population, always taking special population in consideration. And then you're going to have to conduct training and drills to update your plan. Continuity of operation plan, it's kind of a recovery plan. And it answered the question, if your church building couldn't be used tomorrow, how would you keep services, ministries, and essential functions going? Making sure the mission of the church continues even after disaster or emergency, such as a power outage, fire, storm, or other disruption that may affect your facility. So with the continuity of operation plan, you have the emergency action plan, which teaches you and incorporates everything that you do during an emergency. And the continuity of operation plan is in case your facility is impacted, how you're going to continue your essential functions. Are you going to do your service online? Are you going to have mutual aid agreements with other churches to go and have the service there? So this is something you need to think, or your leadership of the church needs to think, to be able to build this plan.
Joanna, may I give an example here? There's a very large parish in the OCA in South Carolina just about a month ago, had a lightning storm, and the lightning hit the bell tower, which caught on fire in the middle of the night. I believe it was a Saturday night, right before Sunday liturgy. And the person who discovered the fire was not able to find any leaders to contact in the middle of the night. So it's very important that you have some kind of a phone tree so that at least the rector and other leaders of the parish can hear.
Communication plans can be internal and external. As Deacon can just explain, you could have a phone tree, radios, group text, or any other apps for alerts. For example, at St. Mary's, when we have the safety team or members of the safety team on duty on every given Sunday, we do have radios, and we do, in case of an emergency, we communicate via radio. But I also create a group text with those who are on duty for that Sunday, because in case they cannot hear me on the radio, or in case they cannot communicate on the radio, we have the group text as a backup to be able to communicate. It's important to have pre-scripted messages for emergency notification. This is something that you could always address it with your leadership, because I think it's important to have these messages created ahead of time so your communication officer will be able to have them and be able to tweak them if we need them or when it's needed. Plan for Sunday morning announcement if a disaster or emergency strikes during service. I mean, I know usually priests are very busy on a Sunday morning, and this may be the last thing that they may think about it, but this is kind of educating the congregation by just making sure you announce, okay, in case of an emergency, these are the main exits, or this is how you shelter in place. Just like when you go to a meeting at a different facility, and sometimes you have the presenter say, okay, we're here today for this class or this meeting. In case something happens, here's the door, this is where we're gonna meet. In case we need to evacuate, that's the assembly point. So these announcements, short announcements, the priest can do it on Sunday morning, or if it's too much to ask of them for Sunday morning, then they could do an announcement like that on Saturday afternoon. And we use at St. Mary Realm, I don't know how many of you are familiar with this, but we could always put, or the communication officer can put on every Saturday a message of awareness and what to do in case something happens on a Sunday during the liturgy. So this is important too, because it raises awareness in the church community. And once you implement the safety program, it's not going to come as a shock. It's not going to come as a surprise. Deacon Ken and I, we were talking because we do have some lessons learned as we implement, and we are still implementing different things within our preparedness program. We're not at the end. We didn't finalize it yet. We're still in the beginning. We are enhancing our emergency procedures like evacuations, shelter in place. But we do have some lessons learned that we would like to share with you in case you are able to implement a program like this. To learn from our mistakes, or to be able to mitigate some of the things at your facility based on what you hear from us today. So Deacon Ken, would you like to explain a little bit and go over some of the lessons learned while implementing this program at St. Mary?
Yes. So the whole topic of safety is obviously very important, and everybody recognizes that. But sometimes when you initiate a new program, there's going to be different opinions on how that should be rolled out. And it's important that you really communicate rollout of a big plan before you actually begin it. Now, it's often going to be impossible to get, 100% agreement on how a new program should be executed. But at least if you, communicate in advance how it's going to happen and, what the steps are, so that people aren't surprised, that's going to go a long way in getting people to, accept the plan. Um, the Obviously you need buy-in from the rector as well as the parish council before you initiate any major plans, but it's important to communicate with the rest of the parishioners too, rather than just kind of launching something without enough advance communication.
Thank you, Deacon Ken. And I would like to add that we have done at St. Mary some outreach to announce, to let people know that we're going to implement this program. But I feel that people also are in denial because they like to think that the church is a safe haven and like nothing happens there, or like nothing will happen to them personally. So people like to be in denial and not to accept this. And when we implemented the program and we had the safety team, for example, wearing yellow vests, they were very intimidated by it because it reminds them, it's a continuous reminder that, oh, something could happen. But just like Deacon Ken said, you can't, have everyone happy. It's just put your mindset like, think back when you were in school and your teachers had to do fire drills, right? Or maybe some of you are teachers too, and the school has to do fire drills, and all the teachers or majority of the teachers are being very annoyed with the fact that their daily or their class is interrupted and they have to take the time to actually go outside, take the kids, go to the assembly point and things like that. And you're going to see teachers complain that it interrupted the day, that it wasn't a good time, and can they get a heads up? And because it's always like that, people don't want to think about it, and they want to be in denial, and they don't want to take the effort and put in the extra a mile to actually be prepared. But if something happens at the church, and if the organization is not prepared, then it's going to probably come to the leader of the church to say, well, my husband tripped on the coffee spill in fellowship hall and he got hurt. What are you going to do about it then, right? They will expect you to have all the actions in place and be able to protect that individual. So the point that we're trying to make today is, if you decide to implement this program, address challenges that will come, because you will have challenges, but you have to be prepared. And at St. Mary's, we did have the buyout of the leadership, but I think it is important that the leadership will back you up. Because in many cases, as I've seen with other organizations, even if you get the buyout from the leadership at first, but then as you roll out the program and you have complaints or you have people who are not happy, the leadership is stepping back and leaves you alone to the wolves. So I think it's important that not only that you get the buy-in from the leadership, but you always have the leadership always has your back and support the effort that you're doing. Communication plan, again, we talked about it.
I have a question before you move on, if you would. Back on the previous slide. Excuse me. You had mentioned the third bullet down, the use of realm and things like that. Now, if there is a standard weekly message that goes out on the Saturday evening, okay, people are aware of that. But on Sunday mornings, as an example, my family and I are getting ready for church. We're both in the choir. We have to be there early. There are just activities that come into play, and it is necessary to communicate. But I don't see realm being the vehicle to do that. And so my question is really a question and a statement, and that is, have we come across any other capability where we could send out emails, texts, emergency notifications to our parishioners, and only to our parishioners? Just as we have on our phones, we get the emergency alerts from the weather department. My phone starts buzzing like crazy. Is there such an activity or such a vehicle that we could implement at the parish level so that there is an effective means to communicate with everybody?
I know that Realm doesn't have that capacity that you are mentioning about. I know that at St. Mary's, people are not very happy with Realm, and we are looking at different avenues and different, ways of communicating with the parish, and we also taking that in consideration. So if we come across with something that it will work for St. Mary, I can, Dick and Ken can definitely share that information with you.
Okay. On a related subject, if I may, I realize you're
Sure.
limited on time. On one of the previous slides, you listed all the catastrophes that took place, and you showed the Annunciation Church here in Minneapolis, where 2 young children were killed, 17 injured, and one of those injured was a member of our parish. She was very seriously injured and hospitalized, and still exists today with a bullet in her head. It cannot be removed. But consequently, that has really raised a sense of awareness and fear of what could happen. We hosted the Oratorical Festival a month or so ago for the Metropolis, and Father Tim received phone calls from families wanting to know, if they come there, what steps are being taken to protect them while they're in the church. And okay, that's
I'm sorry. If we could please move on. I don't mean to cut you off, but we do want to make sure Joanna has a chance to get through the presentation.
No, I appreciate the feedback, and just a little bit to what you said. I think I'm so sorry to hear about that parishioner, and I feel that because of situations like this, it's important, and this is the reason why we're doing this webinar and why we want to put it on the website and send it to everyone so we could raise awareness. And I'm sorry for everything that parishioner went through. So going back to the next slide, we're going to talk about external communication, building relationships with external partners such as local law enforcement, fire, EMS, and nearby churches or neighbors. Having emergency supplies like first aid kits, AEDs, flashlights, backup lightning, blankets, water, and food. Portable radios for power outages, generators, or backup power supply. Safety and security considerations. At St. Mary, before we implemented the program, we did a safety walkthrough with the local police department. We did a vulnerability assessment, and we did find out that we have poor lighting, for example. We didn't have updated evacuation maps placed in Sunday school classes. So we assessed everything, the fire risks, the severe weather, the backup power. We looked at the children's area where the Sunday school classes are being held. What kind of shades are we using? We actually in the process of ordering some shades that from the outside, you're not going to be able to see the silhouettes of the children in the classroom. Shelter in place area identify interior, and those are the interior rooms without windows, and secure important records and IC system. And I do want to show you, this is the sign that, can everybody see? This is the sign that we put as a shelter in place at the church to be able to identify the rooms for sheltering in place. We also put for the rooms in the inside the church, we identified and we put numbers, because these small numbers for each classroom, because if somebody is in a lockdown or needs to evacuate, we're going to say room number 1 is being on lockdown, or room number 5 is, doing a shelter in place exercise. Then for the evacuation, for response procedures, evacuation, you have to determine primary and secondary routes for sanctuary, classrooms, and fellowship hall. Designated assembly points outside, and it's very important accountability method for ensuring that everybody is out. And for the shelter in place, like I showed you the severe weather signs to put and move people to interior rooms away from the glass door. And I also I want to show you this evacuation assembly. So we placed these 2 signs outside of the church, and we identified 2 evacuation routes, one through the back, one through the front, depends who is the closest to what exit. And these are the signs that we put, one in the back, one in the front, so people will know these are the assembly areas. And then we are in the process too to put these numbers and number the doors. You see how you see at schools or colleges and universities, they have these doors numbered. We're going to do that at St. Mary because it's very important. Once we finalize this, we're going to give the numbers and the evacuation maps to the fire department, because if there is something and we call 911, we could say the fire is by the door 6, but you could enter through door 1. So the fire department will know exactly which door to access the building, because if we're not, they're going to break the door down. I mean, like, they don't care. you notice all the colleges and the schools that all have it, especially if you have a Sunday school, because it's important, especially when we serve the little ones. For active assailant, you probably are familiar with the run, hide, and fight principles. Now they change it to avoid, deny, and defend. There is the video on YouTube if you want to watch it. And then, again, I'm saying, like I said earlier, it's important for people to kind of practice this and have it as a best behavior, kind of when they go into the church or any facility, any place, to kind of think, okay, where's the closest exit? Where can I hide? And how can I fight if I have to? I did share a resource with Dick and Ken. It's a course from FEMA. You could do it online by yourself. It teaches you how to prepare before, what to do during, and how to recover after an incident like that. So Deacon Ken will be able to share that link with that course for you. Make sure you have lockdown procedures for children's areas. Work with the law enforcement, have medical response and AED. Like I said, we recruited nurses and MDs, retired or active, and at every single given Sunday, we do have a medical personnel on site in case something happens. And also have designated personnel, because if something happens, people are going to be confused, and everybody, either they're not going to do anything because they're going to rely you're going to do it, and you're going to rely on somebody else to do it, and it's not going to get done, or everybody's going to call 911 and it's going to overwhelm 911, and you're not going to be able to go through and get through the call. Medical emergencies, yes.
Oh, hi. We have a question in the chat box. Do you recommend cameras inside the church, including the narthex and nave, and possibly connected to the local police department?
Yes, we actually, when we did the safety walkthrough, the police officer told us that we could put cameras outside and inside. And also, he recommended his best solution is to have a security guard or a police officer. You have somebody, but you have to pay for them, for their services. And if the church doesn't have money to do that, then the best thing will be the best thing also will be to have the safety team in place of individuals who have law enforcement or military experience and be able to act right if something happens. And also their brain functions differently too, because they could look at different and assess different situations, because they've been active as well. Roles and responsibilities in a church incident response framework. So this is something that I referred to in previous slides, that people have to know who's doing what. So usually the incident coordinator who oversees the whole operation should be the priest or safety lead. Now, my personal recommendation is to have the safety lead. So in this case, at St. Mary will be myself. And why? Because the priest is busy in the altar with the service. Like if something happens on a Sunday, he's usually with the back at the front door or the main door, so then they're not going to be able to see what's going on. But the safety team and the safety lead, it's their responsibility to see it. Then you should have this team who will implement all the protective actions, the evacuation, the lockdown, the shelter in place. So they're going to call the shots. The medical response team will provide the first response, like until help arrives, to make sure that, the person is assisted in case it's needed. We had situations at St. Mary where, for example, on Easter, Saturday midnight service, somebody was sick and fainted in the altar, right? We had somebody else who, like I said, because of fasting on a Sunday morning, was feeling like fainting. So So you do have these medical emergencies, even small. You could have a pregnant woman who is about to go into labor while singing in the choir. Then communication officer manages messaging internally and externally. So it's very important to have those pre-written messages so the communication, so the priest doesn't have to worry about sending these messages out, because the communication officer, it's usually part of the safety team. It's like a PIO, right? Like a public information officer who is part of the response. They will be able to send these messages to the families or to talk to the priest or whatnot. Greeters facilitate evacuation and accountability, because they are by the main door. They're going to be able to, help with the evacuation and have people, run through the door, or, have them sent to the room where they're supposed to do the sheltering in place. Training and drills. It is important once you have response procedures, once you have your safety team, you do your threat assessment, make sure you do the training and the drills. Drill for evacuation in severe weather. And it doesn't have to be necessarily during the service. It could be after the service. You could do just a quick drill, just like they do, like a fire drill, like they do in schools. Annual active assailant training and drill with local police, regular AD and first aid refresher, like we provided all the Sunday school teachers that are actually CPR, BLS certified, thanks to the church director who actually provided 2 classes for our teachers. Tabletop exercises with discussion-based injects, which will test the church ability to respond to a simulated emergency using existing plans and resources. And you could do also functional and full-scale exercise. So basically, table exercise is discussion-based. Functional exercise means that you want to test only a part of your plan, and full-scale exercise is exercise where, like, you want the whole parish do an evacuation, or you want the whole parish do a shelter in place, and you want to see how they do it. Community coordination. It is important to connect with the emergency management, with neighboring churches, nonprofits for mutual aids. How our church can serve the neighborhood. So the church in emergency preparedness has 2 responsibilities. One is to protect its property and parishioners, and 2 is to help the neighborhood where the physical church is located in. And the church can provide sheltering, or could be open facilities as warming or cooling centers or temporary shelter. Distribution point. You could be a distribution point for water, food, blankets after a disaster. You could be an information hub, provide reliable updates when communications are down. Emotional and spiritual care, and volunteer-based. Mobilize congregation to help your neighbors around the church, checking on the elderly, knock at their doors before anything happens in calm times and tell them, hey, we located on this street, and this is what we can offer in case something happens, or in case there is a winter storm or something happens and you don't have power. We can help you by providing you with this. For example, St. Mary has been registered with the Fairfax Office of Emergency Management, and they are doing trainings together because the county wants to know what resources each faith-based organization and church can provide in case of an emergency. And St. Mary, along with other churches who are part of this voluntary organizations active in disasters, they are working together. And in this way, the Office of Emergency Management knows, okay, St. Mary located in Falls Church will do donations management because it has that capability. And when I put Father David in touch with the Office of Emergency Management, he had to fill out a form to indicate what capabilities we have as a church to help our immediate neighborhood. So I would totally encourage you to partner with your local office of emergency management and be able to be part of a greater network and help your community and like the immediate neighborhood where the church is located. This is kind of a form of a outreach. Community preparedness and legal support. Ensure church documentation, policies, and emergency procedures are legally sound, are aligned with the local emergency management regulations, ADA requirements, civil protection statutes, and applicable duty of care standards. Provide guidance on volunteer liability, insurance considerations, record keeping, confidentiality agreements. So when you put this emergency preparedness program in place, you're going to develop confidentiality agreements. You're going to develop certain certain documents that they have to be reviewed by an attorney. Continuity of operations, all these plans have to be reviewed by you. Draft and review memoranda of understanding between churches, partner with other organizations or restaurants. Like you could partner with restaurants or Costco or BJ's, not in your immediate area, but like in a different county, because if your county or your area is impacted by a disaster, nobody from that area will be able to respond because they're going to respond to that disaster. But somebody outside of your area to be able maybe to provide you with food to give to those in need outside in your neighborhood. County emergency management agencies, again, it's very important because if you, somebody just mentioned about emergency alerts, getting emergency alerts from your county. I mean, did you think of joining maybe Neighborhood Watch or Nextdoor? For example, me as a lead of the safety ministry of St. Mary, even though I don't live in Falls Church, I did sign up with Neighborhood Watch for that area because I'm interested to see what is going on in that neighborhood. So these are things that you should take in consideration, and you'll be able to help your community. Conduct legal and compliance reviews of all the plans, all the volunteer protocols, incident reporting. For example, for the incident reporting, we came up with a system at St. Mary where I develop a report, and if something happens on a Sunday, whoever observes the emergency fills out the report, comes to me as a lead, I sign it, I put it in an incident binder that stays in the church, in the parish council office. And then I go on Realm and I let Father David know and some other individuals that, the report has been completed. This is what happened on today's date, and you want Father David to go review it and sign it. And that document then Father David comes and he kind of completes the circle by stating in Realm that the report has been signed. Then deliver training and advisory support to clergy, boards, church leadership on legal responsibilities, negligence implications, incident documentations, and governance best practices related to emergency preparedness and organizational safety. Now, in closing, I want to really understand that preparedness is part of everybody's calling to love and protect others. Our church can be both a safe haven and also a light in the darkness during crisis for our immediate neighborhood. Hope is not a plan. Preparedness is a stewardship. And I really want you to walk away from this webinar just think of what would be a next step that you would like to take. Creating a safety team, doing a hazard vulnerability assessment at your church, maybe improving your communication system, your communication plan, or developing any emergency action plan. And I would be more than happy to help any of the churches, build your preparedness program through my consulting firm that I have. And if you have any questions or anything like that, this is my contact information. Feel free to write it down. Deacon Ken can share this with you as well. Like Deacon Ken said, I'm part of St. Mary's congregation. He knows where to find me. Deacon Ken, do we have any questions in the chat?
Yes, someone asked, do you envision any circumstances where a greeter might have to deny access to a stranger who wants to come into the church? For example, a young man with a large backpack who appears to have a mental health challenge. I don't know if this person is referring to a real incident that happened in Washington State just a couple months ago, where there was someone who tried to come into an Orthodox parish who the safety team had reason to believe that the person had arms in his car.
Yes, as when we did the training, we did actually training with police department in identifying suspicious behavior. And in that training, the Fairfax County police officer, he did mention that we as safety team, we do have the right to stop him and ask him if he's okay, if he's visiting, try to like ease him in and see if we find or if we notice any triggers that may be of a concern. And if that's the case, then you could communicate with the rest of your team and you'll be able to like keep an eye on him and keep him, somebody maybe can position themselves as a safety officer near the individual. But you have the right to stop him and, to ask if he's okay, if he needs any help, and try to see what's going on with the individual. And he told us not to be afraid to call the local police department. If we think and we see anything that doesn't seem right or it doesn't make us feel right, then we could call the local precinct. They will show up right away.
And this is why it's a good idea to have a full team who's working together, because if you do have to confront someone who, might look a little bit suspicious, it's always a good idea to have more than one person do that together rather than one, both for safety reasons, but also for legal reasons. If you ever need evidence that the parish treated the person properly, it's good to have two people who are involved who can be witnesses to each other.
And I'll give you another example. At St. Mary one Sunday, I was outside doing my rounds and I was wearing a yellow vest. And I see as I come to church that the street is flooded. And, I put my vest on, I do my rounds, and I see Fairfax water pulling in. And they approached me to actually tell me that there is a pipe that is broken and they need to fix it. And our facility may be impacted and we may not have water. And everybody was still in the service. They didn't come down to the fellowship hall yet. So I gave the person my cell phone number and I told them I'm part of the safety team and to let me know if my church will be impacted by the repairs. So he said yes, and he said he's going to talk to his supervisor to see maybe they could work around our property. And I'm telling you, during the fellowship hour, he called me 3 times to verify that we continue to have water, to make sure that fellowship hour is not impacted. So they wouldn't have come to me and talked to me if they wouldn't have seen me wearing the yellow vest.
We are at the end of the hour. I want to thank everyone for joining on this. We had a very spirited conversations in the chat room, which is great. I'm sure there's probably a lot of other questions that could be asked. Joanna is free to stick around just for a few minutes if anyone has some lingering questions and want to stick around. Otherwise, thank you so much. Again, if you know attorneys in your parish or community, please let them know about LCAN. We'd love to connect with them and be able to offer more topics, more webinars and resources to support our parishes throughout the country.